I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, and I need to get this off my chest. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Emily, for about 4 years now. We got engaged last year, and everything was supposed to be perfect. We had plans, dreams, that sort of fairy tale idea of building a life together. But things started feeling off a few weeks ago. Small things. She'd be unusually tense, cancel plans last minute, and her phone started acting weird. At first, I figured she was just stressed with work or something. Emily's a pretty bitchy girl sometimes, but she's also charming and beautiful, so I always thought she was worth the effort. Still, I noticed her sneaking around more, hiding her phone more than usual, locking it when she was in the bathroom or when I was nearby. She'd get defensive if I asked about her day, and sometimes she'd snap at me for no reason. I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was just paranoid. Then a few nights ago, I was lying in bed trying to fall asleep when I saw her phone light up on the nightstand. It was vibrating constantly and I couldn't help myself. I grabbed it. I don't usually do stuff like this, but something told me to check, and what I saw made my stomach drop. There were messages, flirty, explicit messages. I mean, really graphic stuff. She was talking to some guy, calling him babe, sending photos, even videos. It was more than just friendly banter. I froze. My mind went blank. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I could hear her moving around downstairs, probably getting a glass of water or whatever, but I couldn't look away. I kept scrolling and saw more than I expected. A whole conversation filled with teasing, dirty talk, and even videos of her, well, doing what she thinks I don't know about. The worst part, I recognized the guy. His name is Josh. He's one of my best friends. We've known each other for years. I always trusted him. Hell, he was the guy I confided in about my relationship, all the stupid little fights, plans for the wedding. And now I find out he's been banging my wife behind my back. That's when I remembered the last few weeks, how she'd suddenly been more distant, how she always had her phone glued to her hand, and how she'd lie her ass off if I called her out on anything. That night I felt like my world was crashing down. I couldn't breathe properly. I was furious, hurt, betrayed all at once. I didn't sleep that night, just stared at her phone, holding it like it was some kind of evidence, a symbol of everything I lost. I kept asking myself how she could do this, how she could betray me so completely, especially knowing how much I loved her. And the thing is, Emily's not the type of chick who just cheats quietly. She's bitchy, manipulative, and she's always been the kind to deny, deny, deny. She's a master at lying, too. So I knew deep down she'd try to spin her way out of this, but I wasn't planning to let her. Not anymore. This was the end of the line for us. I just needed to figure out what to do next. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind kept replaying everything I saw the night before, those videos, those messages. Josh's name all over her phone like some sick badge of honor. I couldn't even look at her the same way. I'd always thought Emily was charming, confident, a little bitchy sometimes, but basically honest. Now I saw her for what she really was, a lying, cheating piece of shit. I knew I had to confront her. I didn't want to believe it was true, but the evidence was staring me in the face. I didn't want to be some fool, standing there while she lied her way out of it again. So I decided to get her alone and ask her straight up. I waited until she came home from work, trying to keep my emotions in check. My hands were sweaty and my stomach was doing flip-flops. She walked in, all confident and bitchy, as if she hadn't just been caught with her hand in the cookie jar. "Hey babe," she said, giving me that fake smile. "What's wrong? You look like you saw a ghost." I didn't hold back. I slammed her phone down on the table, pointed to the screen, and told her I knew everything. Her eyes widened for a second, then that bitchy smile kicked in. "What are you talking about, Mike? You're overreacting. Maybe you're jealous, babe." She tried to brush it off, acting innocent like I was crazy, but I wasn't buying it. I pulled out my phone, showed her the videos, the messages. Her face just twisted into this annoyed, angry expression. "Oh, that's just some stupid flirtation. It doesn't mean anything. Josh and I were just friends. You're blowing this out of proportion." I felt my blood boil. "You're lying," I said. "You've been screwing him, haven't you? Right before our wedding. How long has this been going on? How many times?" She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. God, you're so dramatic. Whatever you think you saw, it's not what you think. Josh is just a buddy, okay? He's been there for me through some rough times, that's all it is. That's when I lost it. It's not just a little flirtation, Emily. I saw videos of you blowing him, doing things I don't even want to mention. You're cheating on me and you're lying about it. How could you do this? How could you betray me like this right before our wedding? She snorted, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh, please, you're just insecure. You don't trust me, do you? Maybe if you weren't so controlling, I wouldn't have needed to find some comfort elsewhere. I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing, trying to process how she could be so callous, so indifferent to the pain she was causing. It felt like my heart was shattering into pieces. I'd always given her everything, my love, my trust, and she'd repaid me with betrayal and lies. She kept up the act, throwing out excuses, acting like I was overreacting. I felt this mix of fury and despair, like I wanted to shake her and scream, "How could you? How could you do this to us, to me?" But I held back. I just looked at her, feeling completely numb. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept wondering how I'd let myself believe in her lies for so long. I felt stupid, naive, and absolutely betrayed. I knew I had to make a decision, but right then, I just felt overwhelmed by it all. I never thought I'd be in a situation where I'd find out my wife was cheating on me with my best friend. It's the kind of thing you see in movies, not in real life, and now I was living it. The morning after the confrontation, I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I sat in my apartment trying to gather my thoughts, but everything was a jumble. My stomach was twisted, my head was pounding, and the image of those videos and messages kept replaying in my mind. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I could have been so blind. Emily had always been bitchy, yes, but I never thought she was capable of something this cruel. I decided I needed to get some space. I texted her that I was going to stay with my brother for a few days. I couldn't be around her right now. I needed to think, to breathe, to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. Leaving her standing there, still acting innocent, was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. I felt like I was walking out on everything I believed in. That day, I started digging into every detail I could find. I knew she'd lied about the extent of her relationship. With Josh, she always lied, so I started looking for more evidence. I went through her social media, her emails, her texts, whatever I could get my hands on. I needed to be sure I wasn't just jumping to conclusions. Turns out I was. I found more than I bargained for, pictures of her and Josh together, out at dinner at his place, even more explicit videos. I couldn't believe I had been so blind. The worst part was realizing this wasn't just some one-night stand. They'd been doing this for weeks, maybe longer. She'd been sneaking around, hiding her phone, giving me bullshit excuses. I remember how she'd get annoyed if I looked at her phone, how she'd lie and say she was just texting her sisters or her coworkers. All that time she was lying right to my face. I spent hours just staring at her photos, trying to process the betrayal. It was like a punch to the gut each time I saw her smiling, acting so innocent, while behind my back she was screwing my best friend. That's when I decided I needed to confront Josh. I knew I couldn't just let him get away with it. I wanted to hear what he had to say face to face. So I reached out to him that evening. I texted him something simple: "We need to talk now." I didn't want to beat around the bush. I wanted answers. A few minutes later, he called me back, sounding nervous but trying to act cool. I told him I knew everything, that I'd seen the videos and messages. His silence told me everything I needed to know. He tried to deny it at first. Said it was just a mistake, that Emily was just lonely, that it didn't mean anything, but I didn't buy it. I told him I knew they'd been doing this for weeks, that I had proof, and if he didn't want me to go nuclear, he'd cut it out. I told him I'd be watching him, and if I found out he was lying, I'd make sure everyone knew what he was really like. After that call, I felt a little sense of clarity. I knew I couldn't keep going on like this, pretending everything was fine. I had to decide what I wanted, whether to fight for this or to cut my losses and walk away. Honestly, part of me wanted to burn everything down, to ruin both her and Josh's lives because of what they'd done. But I also knew I needed to think about myself, about what was best for me long term. So I spent the night in a cheap motel, trying to keep my head clear. I couldn't believe how quickly my life had flipped upside down. Just a few days ago, I was planning our wedding, imagining our future. Now I was staring down the barrel of a broken relationship, a betrayal that cut so deep it hurt just to breathe. I kept asking myself how I was going to recover from this, whether I could ever trust again, or if I was destined to be just another guy who got played by a bitchy wife and his supposed best friend. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. My mind was a mess, every thought swirling around the betrayal, the lies, the videos I'd uncovered. I kept replaying the moment I saw Emily's face when I confronted her. The way she tried to play it off, acting like I was crazy, like she hadn't just been screwing my best friend. That fake smile, that dismissive attitude, it made my blood boil. I'd always thought she was confident, a bit bitchy, sure, but strong. Turns out she was just a manipulative liar, willing to do anything to save her own ass. I knew I had to do something. I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without consequences. I decided to call her again, but this time I was calm, controlled. I wanted to hear her voice to see how she'd react, if she'd try to deny everything again or own up for once. As soon as she picked up, I just laid it all out. Emily, I found everything. The videos, the messages, the pictures. I know about Josh. I know everything. There was silence on the other end, heavy and tense. Then she snapped, "You're nuts. You're just jealous because I'm a beautiful woman and I can have whoever I want. You're insecure, Mike. That's not my fault." Her voice was full of that bitchy, condescending tone she always used when she was trying to manipulate someone. But I wasn't buying her act anymore. "Don't lie to me," I said. "You've been screwing him for weeks. You lied about everything. And I want to know, was it just sex or was it more? Did you really love him or was it just some stupid game to you?" There was a pause and then she said, "Look, I don't owe you an explanation. Yeah, I messed up, but I'm done with this. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Just leave me alone." Her voice cracked a little at the end, but she quickly masked it with her usual bitchy attitude. I felt a mix of anger and sadness. Anger because she had lied and cheated, but sadness because I genuinely loved her. I'd trusted her, built a future with her, and she'd just thrown it all away for some stupid affair. It was hard to accept, but I knew I couldn't stay with someone like that. Not anymore. After we hung up, I was left with a lot of questions. How long had she been cheating? Was it just Josh, or were there others? Did she ever really love me, or was I just some placeholder until she found her next fix? And most of all, could I ever forgive her? Deep down, I knew the answer was no. I couldn't trust her again, not after seeing those videos, not after her lies and manipulations. I was hurt, humiliated, and honestly pretty angry. But I also felt a strange sense of relief. Like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders, even though the pain was still there. I realized I'd been in denial for a long time, trying to convince myself everything was fine. But now it was painfully clear. I needed to move on, even if it meant starting over alone. That day, I decided I'd give myself some time to grieve, to process everything. I'd talk to friends, maybe even a counselor. I needed to find strength inside myself to rebuild. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that some betrayals run so deep, you have to rip the entire relationship apart and start fresh. There's no fixing some of these wounds, they just leave scars. And I'd rather carry those scars than stay with someone who had no respect for me or our vows. It's been a few weeks now since I found out the full extent of Emily's betrayal, and honestly, it's been one of the hardest periods of my life. Every day is a roller coaster of emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal, and a weird sense of relief. I keep telling myself I deserved better than a wife who could cheat on me with my best friend, but that doesn't make the pain any easier to handle. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, thinking about the videos, about the lies she told, and I feel this crushing weight in my chest. I've been trying to piece my life back together. I cut contact with Emily entirely. No messages, no calls, nothing. I blocked her on social media, changed my number, and told a few close friends what happened. They're supportive, but I can tell they're just as shocked as I am. Nobody saw this coming, especially not from Emily. She always played the innocent victim, the bitchy girl with a sharp tongue but a good heart, or so I thought. Turns out she was just good at hiding her real self. I also reached out to Josh. I needed closure, even if it's just for myself. I sent him a message saying I knew everything and that I didn't want to hear any lies. I told him if he was man enough, he'd tell me the truth, if he really cared about his friendship or if he was just another guy who used her for sex. Surprisingly, he responded pretty quickly. He said he was sorry, that he never meant to hurt me and that it was a mistake, that he was drunk and stupid. I don't buy that it was a mistake nonsense. People don't cheat for weeks and then claim it's just a slip-up. But at this point, I don't care about his excuses. I just wanted to hear the truth, and I guess I got it. As for Emily, I don't know where she is or what she's doing. I don't even want to find out. Honestly, I don't think I could ever forgive her, not after what I saw. I know I'll probably carry this betrayal with me forever, but I also realize I can't keep living in the past. I have to move forward. I've started going to the gym, trying to clear my head and rebuild my confidence. I've even started talking to some new people, trying to remind myself there's life outside of this heartbreak. The biggest lesson I've learned from all this is that trust is fragile. I was naive, I guess, thinking that because she was my wife, she'd always be honest and faithful. Turns out I was wrong. You can't make someone love you or stay loyal. People will do what they want, no matter how much they pretend otherwise. I've also learned that revenge isn't worth it. I thought about exposing her, telling everyone what she did, but I realized that wouldn't make me feel any better. It'd just make me look petty. So right now, I'm just trying to focus on healing, to rebuild my sense of self, to remind myself that I'm better than someone who could betray me like that. Maybe someday I'll meet someone new, someone who actually values me, not just her own selfish needs. But for now, I need to focus on myself. Whatever happens next, I know one thing for sure. I'll never let anyone treat me like that again. And I'll never trust blindly again. That's the hardest lesson of all, but also the most necessary. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's that no matter how deep the betrayal, you can get through it. Maybe not overnight, but eventually. Just don't let the pain define you. Find your strength, pick up the pieces, and start over. Because life's too short to stay with someone who doesn't respect you. Looking back now, I realize that this whole experience has changed me in ways I never expected. I used to believe in happily ever after, in the idea that if you loved someone enough, they'd never betray you. But life taught me a brutal lesson. Some people aren't worth your trust, and some betrayals cut so deep that they leave scars you carry forever. Still, I've learned that survival isn't just about getting through the pain, it's about using it as fuel to grow stronger. I've come to accept that Emily was never the person I thought she was. Her bitchy attitude, her manipulations, those were just masks she wore to hide who she really was. I was blinded by love, but now I see her for what she truly was. A selfish, dishonest woman who cheated and lied her way through our relationship. And I'm grateful I found out before we went through with the wedding, because honestly, I don't think I could have lived the rest of my life with that kind of person. Of course, I still feel the sting of betrayal. Sometimes I get angry, sometimes I get sad, and sometimes I just sit in silence thinking about everything I lost. But the thing is, I also feel a strange sense of relief. Relief that I saw the truth before it was too late. Relief that I didn't end up married to someone who didn't deserve me. And most of all, relief that I'm finally starting to put myself back together. I've realized I'm stronger than I thought and that I don't need someone like Emily to define my happiness. What I want others to know is this: don't ignore the signs. Don't convince yourself that you can change someone or that their lies are just misunderstandings. When you see the evidence, whether it's videos, messages, or just that gnawing feeling in your gut, pay attention. Because ignoring it only makes things worse. And if you find yourself betrayed, remember that you're not alone. It hurts. It shatters your trust, but you will heal. You will move on. Most importantly, never let anyone treat you like a second choice or a backup plan. If someone doesn't value you enough to be faithful, then they're not worth your time or your tears. Cut the toxic people out of your life, focus on yourself, and rebuild what you thought was lost. Because in the end, the greatest revenge is living your life well without them. So here I am, finally starting a new chapter. No more lies, no more betrayal. Just me, figuring out what's next. It hurts, but I know I'll be okay. I've learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes from facing the darkest betrayal and choosing to walk away from it rather than letting it destroy you. That's what I'm doing now, moving forward one step at a time.